Please join me for the pledge and the prayer. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, please watch over us as we conduct this meeting for the citizens of Fremont County. Be mindful to keep us also aware that we are acting in their best interest and protect the soldiers and armed forces across this great world and across this wonderful United States. In Jesus' name, amen. Agenda.
Our board meets a few minutes at 9:20 for personnel.
Who
wasn't? Terry.
Nope.
No.
You're really gonna say no after that,
Commissioners.
Love you all too.
I forgot, I probably need to get that right, you know, Tara, same thing.
Okay.
Boy.
We're Domino's today,
Double trouble.
Start of mine.
so you get 9:25.
Okay. Commissioners.
Move to accept the agenda as amended. Second, Mr. Chair.
Been moved and seconded to accept the agenda as amended. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Minutes.
Mr. Chairman, move for approval of minutes.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve minutes. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. We have no Title 25 signature file.
We're gonna do the bills?
Yeah, we did the bill.
We did?
Yeah. We did. Well, it said Title 20, sorry. We did do it. All right. I would skip by it because it
I
said,
thought I was having a senior moment.
yeah.
You know what?
Sorry.
We have bills to be paid. Sorry.
Move for approval of bills.
Second.
And there's a second to approve the bills finally.
Yeah.
Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. And I see it said Title 25 bills and I just
Okay. No worries.
moved that out. Signature file.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a letter to Rodney Haper thanking him for his service on the solid waste board. We have. Oh, is this, so we have to approve the bid here
Yes.
for the,
There's two.
for the over, yeah, there's a couple of them.
Yeah.
We did it together.
Ah,
They were,
well,
it says 1 and 2.
Overhead door.
one for the over door,
And that's from the.
and that's for the electrical.
We authorized.
It's already been authorized, just need to approve this.
I don't remember what was it.
We authorized 11,000
Wasn't that for the heater?
capital revolving.
No.
No, oh, this is ADA. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the ADA door. It says overhead door and I'm like,
I know it.
Drawing a blank, okay. yeah, and then this is, okay, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the bid from overhead door on our ADA door update to the court area for, oh, I see. It's the math, when you throw your, when you show your work like that, it confuses me. I never showed my work in math, that's
I
why.
was making sure you knew.
I just did it in my head.
Math is hard.
They're not over budget.
Anyway, $88,850. And for Fremont Electric to do the electrical at $1,550. Move to approve.
Been moved and seconded to approve the bids for the ADA doors. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Right.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we have an abatement summary, and this one I have a question. This is a pretty large one, the 330,000 for Stephen Husted. Here you go. You can have that.
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you, commissioners. You've been seeing more abatements than I usually process through. In defense of myself, if you remember back to when we started applying all kinds of, this 350,000 is a little different, but when we started applying all these exemptions and I said our system wasn't necessarily capable of that. Well, what happened was a lot of land adjustments, and I know many of you have been reached out to by taxpayers. Many of those land adjustments did not calculate. Like, we had a reservation piece the other day where there was a lack of access. We had an adjustment on it. It either didn't calculate it or it doubled the value of the land. So you've been seeing some strange adjustments. My frustration in that is we send assessment notices, and a couple people I tried to talk through that, but then at the end of the day, their value needed to be correct. So you're seeing some abatements on that because the system, and we try to run reports for that kind of stuff, but with everything changing so drastically with all the exemptions and things going all different places, there were some significant increases based on the fact that the system did not calculate those adjustments. This one happens to be, and Mr. Husted also did not look at his assessment notice, or he would have seen the taxes go up. But the grain bin, we had entered thousands of grain bins instead of one. It got calculated as.
Yeah, the
So when
thousand
he
grain
paid
bins.
his taxes, he said, oh my goodness, why did my tax bill go up so much? So we did feel like we needed to fix that one as well. I do hold pretty steady on not fixing them because they get their assessment notice. And as you know, from being at the state board, that 30 days means something because of the taxes and everything that follow. But where it's a serious error like that, we have been fixing those. And it's hard to draw that line, what's an error and what isn't an error. But this one, he does not have that many grain bins. So we had to fix that one, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, so we're just acknowledging here, we only got 4 signatures. We missed one?
Are there any other questions on that one?
I don't know. Me.
I don't know who's.
What should I say?
He's happy he doesn't have 1,000 grain bins.
I played the fifth as far as who's happy and who's not anymore.
Yeah. And it changes.
Foolish question, foolish question.
Good question. Right. Chairman, we have
Just an extension
this is
of-
just an extension for the Wiggins Creek, so from the Federal Highway Administration, move to approve.
Second. Been moved and seconded to approve the
No.
extension for the Wiggins Fork Bridge. Extension.
Oh, no, this one.
Further discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passed.
Mr. Chairman, so we have, from Wyoming Department of Health on the CAST and Juvenile Treatment Court program. You had some questions. Did we want to hold these until we get
Yes.
some information? Okay. Let's do that.
Yes,
We might be able to answer, I don't know.
so,
Questions.
so this is a letter to verify that Fremont County government will provide court-assisted supervised treatment program with a minimum of $70,159.95 in cash and in-kind contributions for fiscal year 26-27. These funds serve as matching funds for the state grant in the amount of $280,000.
Mr. Chairman, her, as you recall from, I believe it was last week, her grant is due this week.
Right.
It's due this week, and they required to have that, we will definitely do a match to that. So we have to say what that match is. I know that she worked with Jim here, so Jim could answer maybe if it's money, the amount of money or whatever. But she has to have that or she's not gonna qualify for her overall grant.
Okay,
Chairman, I think that's based on that 25%,
Mhm.
which we agreed on in initial
Right.
contract between us and the state.
I just know she needs it.
And
We
then-
weren't sure if she did, and they wrote back and where she didn't have that, so we got it into immediately,
so
so.
it says cash and in-kind treatments for both CAST and UPC.
Correct, that's for their next year's budget, remember, so
Right.
this is their guesstimate for next year.
And Mr. Chairman, question, Julie, these are in the budget then? Our
Their
match.
next year's budget requests,
Oh, it would have to be for next year. I see.
yes.
Okay.
So
okay.
she's just, I mean, they have to do theirs so far ahead of
Yeah.
time, so this is what they do,
Okay.
and then we kind of adjust what we
Well,
need
it's
to.
just cash and in kind, so.
Yeah, and I know Jim was working with her on what he does for other grants in kind and whatnot, so he
Good.
worked with her on that.
Yeah, typically what we've done for in-kind is, we look office space, square footage of the office space, and then, providing IT support, financial support, all of that sort of stuff. And so we can determine, basically, an amount that the county is providing, without it actually being a cash amount goes into.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve this letter back to the Wyoming Department of Health with our match for 26-27 for JATC, both programs and the CAS program. So moved.
Been moved and seconded to approve the letter for the grant application with the matching grant, cash and in-kind services. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
And we're gonna hold this.
We're gonna hold on.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, we have a 24-hour beverage sale, alcoholic beverage sales permit application for Catherine. I apologize for the name, Apodaca Hilltop Liquor for their Christmas party on 12/11. No, that's when this was put. When was the party? 12/19/2025. Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve a 24-hour liquor license. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Mr. Chairman, we have an amendment to cooperative agreement for responsibilities between Wyoming Department of Family Services and Child Support Program and Fremont County Clerk. Should we say this until Amanda's here?
Yeah.
So she can explain it a little bit more, okay. Mr. Chairman, we have a letter to Victor Mossbrooker for thanking him for his service on the county predatory animal. And, Mr. Chairman, we have the commissioner's record of proceedings. Everybody sign that. Right. Okay. You sign it.
Priority mail.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First we have, Fremont County Weed Pest Recognition, for awards. For Fremont County District, Aaron Foster was recognized for outstanding weed and pest management practices and significant contribution to Wyoming's weed and pest hospital. So congratulations to Aaron for his, actually got a couple of awards. With state and, so that was, it's our weed and pest, but frankly, it's the best in the state. And they take note of what we do here. So, and our ag lands are prime, for our weed and pest, with our weed and pest help. So thank you to Aaron and congratulations. We have the Office of the Wyoming State Public Defender. Input due no later than 12/22 for Diana Hardwick and Donna Dominocos. Butcher that butcher. So these are, we have to approve these,
No,
Mr. Chairman, or just take your knowledge.
if there's concerns, we'll write a letter.
Okay. And bid opening for timber sale contract to Shawnee Wind River Range District, Du Bois, Wyoming. And that's it.
Good, thank you. Public comment. I'll remind everyone that there's just we limit the public comment to 2 minutes. And then you will be asked to step back and let the next person speak. Kevin,
Was it you? Maybe the public comment.
No.
Was it?
Kevin Henderson.
Oh, I thought that was just a sign in. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
okay,
We didn't know if you wanted to speak.
okay.
Got 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You
Nothing you wanna
say?
Thank you, guys.
That's
Okay,
very.
That doesn't happen very often.
since no further public comment, Tara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for getting me in this morning. Got to get on the agenda. I am asking to replace an employee and office appraiser. Strange set of circumstances that if you want to hear about, I will put it in an executive session. But thank you to the help of our HR department, our county attorney and payroll, we got through it. But I didn't expect to have to do this, but I need to replace that position at 38.6. Just the current position, this person's been with me less than a year. So I will need to replace that.
Questions? Full-time appraiser.
Full-time office appraiser, yes.
Okay. Commissioners.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded to approve rehiring of full-time office appraiser at a salary of $38,600. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Julie.
Friday, I also got a person who is resigning. They were my last hire, and circumstances family wise has made them have to do this, which is really sad because she was an awesome employee from the very beginning. Still is, I mean, but so the basic title entry level is 36.8, and I'm asking so that I could replace that person starting January. Our one floater person upstairs will start working in elections, so I definitely need to get going on this one. Because we are short the one that we gave up. Title I, yeah.
Commissioners, questions?
Mr. Chairman, move for approval, to rehire, Title I position at the amount of $36,800.
36.8.
36.8.
36.8.
Okay.
Hers was 38. Barilla and Marshall.
Do I have a second?
Way to slip that in.
I mean, they're the same way, so we're kind of on the.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to hire a replacement Title I clerk at the amount of $36,800. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Steve?
Morning, Commissioners, Bauman County Planning. Brought to you this morning, a replat of a bunch of the lots at Woods Corner, which is on the reservation right at the intersection of the highway and Truck Creek Road. It's where Heinz General Store is. This was platted by the Pilot Oil Company back in the 30s. There's a way of having a place to put a gas station and retail businesses. And in the 40s, the Heinz family started purchasing most of the lots in the subdivision. And of course, they built a general store and a trading post and a number of other buildings out there. Since they owned the majority of it, they built all those buildings ignoring lot lines and whatnot. At the time, it has since been moved into several different ownerships within the family for different businesses. And their intent here is to divide this up so that the lots are
more discreetly associated with the individual businesses that are associated with each one of those. So they're combining the whole pile of these lots into four discrete lots that hold the bank and the bank building, the trading post, the general store, and several outbuildings. Came before the planning commission in I think it was in September, and was unanimously recommended for to be brought before county commissioners. No one, we had no comments on it. They're in the off prior to the plat or during the meeting.
Questions, commissioners?
Mr.
Yeah.
Is the bank, one be separate because of they belong to a chain of banks?
No, they leased the building.
Oh,
So it's just a discrete parcel with the building on it that they. So the underlying property is all owned by one of the two entities that's owned by the Heinz family.
Okay.
Well, we have to make a motion pending BIA approval, final approval or anything?
There's no BI, it's private property, so it's no BIA approval.
Commissioners,
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the Woods Corner subdivisions lots 1 through 10 and 17 through 22 replat as recommended by the Fremont County Planning Commission.
been moved and seconded to approve Woods Corner subdivision as described in the motion. Further discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passed. Look, could you call Amanda and see if she come a little early? While we're waiting, meeting reports and concern. Commissioner Thomas.
Chairman, the only one I had to report was that, Mr. Jason Valdez said he'll call Emma and reserve a time to come talk to the commission about the issue of the vote stated last week. About the Buffalo. I think he wanted the commission to understand that there has been some sort of ongoing trying to have some sort of collaboration and communication with the gentleman. Who, Mr. Benson. So he wants to make clear what from their point of view. So, also in your, within your, little, cookie gifts in the center is like a rock. That rock is from, the patients of the Center of Hope. So that's a gift from them for each of you. And also, I think we probably would need to set something up with our tribal communication. Probably, I would say mid to late January with the tribe see how they do after the new year, in a sense where they're at. There's a lot of things we have to talk about.
Like to set up a meeting with the new economic development group
Yes,
and see how their progress is going.
yes, there's a lot of things we need to be aware of that's occurring. That's all I have.
Commissioner Jones.
Well, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, the Wyoming Business Council, Josh Durrell spoke to us last week, and, I had a meeting with Patrick Edwards, who's the regional, regional representative for the WBC, and, yeah, I mean, he just kind of explained the situation, and certainly housing and job creation are big deals. Certainly, Riverton seems to be doing really, really well with the land next to Walmart there with there seems to be a lot of business property that's available and people are taking advantage of. That is not happening in Lander. Lander doesn't have that same sort of asset. So we talked a little bit about that. I think they may want to come back in. I'm kind of watching, to be honest with you, watching the legislature. If there's a year that they get rid of the WBC, it'll be this year. They're pretty frustrated. It's an expensive program. They don't necessarily see the benefits of it. I think there are benefits of it, but it doesn't benefit everybody. But anyway, that'll be something to watch at the legislature this year. Was at solid waste yesterday. Lava Mountain Lodge is still kind of discussing with the district. They had put some asbestos containing material when they're doing a remodel up there. And basically, long story short, DEQ got involved and they've been kind of on hold and not dumping at the landfill until they get this rectified. And the landfill or the solid waste district basically wants to charge them about $10,000 because one particular load, it looked like somebody had hid some asbestos under some furniture and stuff. And so there was a lot of accusations and the lodge is asking to remove that. It's a $10,000 bill. And so they're still discussing that right now. The Lava Mountain Lodge is taking their waste to Idaho. So at least it's not creating a hazard up there. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I met with the rec board and, they, had a few concerns about what's going on with they have put in that new sewer system up at the, 4-H lodging area. And, so they're running into some headwinds with the DEQ up there, which they're trying to make them do a kind of a summary or go through a whole barrage of problems with one of the lakes that's a mile down or upstream from them. See if the sewer will affect that upstream lake. It's at least a mile away. And then the other thing is, I don't know about going uphill. And then the budget for next year, we're just gonna go ahead and figure that what they did this year, what we did this year, and not anticipate anything past that point.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Met with Joe Highsmith here a while back, and of course, their cardiopulmonary building that they've been working with, it's still on the go. They're still moving it forward. It's inching forward, but it looks like it's gonna come to fruition, so that's a good thing for Fremont County. The Curry railroad system seems to be picking up. They keep adding more people now. So that's another plus for Fremont County. The airport, took in their meeting last, week ago, and their boardings are down just slightly. But, overall, their boardings are really getting high, so, anything that, they need, it seems to be, working out for them, their boardings are bringing 400 more people per month, so. And I think that's a good thing for Fremont County, that part of the economic development wing is improving, so. Just down just a little bit for Thanksgiving, they said, but everything is above the normal, so.
Is that it?
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Seemed like I was busy doing a lot. I had no meetings. I did notice that one of the proposed bills with legislature are going to increase. They want to increase Medicare payments. Possibly get to 100% of, so that should help the outlook on the ambulance provider, and hopefully if that would go through, it would help a lot, especially with the insurance and so on and so forth, Medicare patients and Medicare users. So anyway, I hope that one goes through. There's a lot of bills being introduced now already, and I know it's the season, but we're looking less than 60 days for legislature to start at the fighting again. So anyway, that's all I have. Amanda, thank you for coming early.
Thank you, guys. Chairman. So it's been a hot second since I've been here last month. It seems like the only thing I've been doing lately is meetings. So there are several updates for the Clerk of District Court's office, meetings with just our general legal field. In October, I went in with my son's teacher in the second grade and talked about the judicial system and the executive branch and legislature. So that was fun. Not really important to you guys, but I find it very informative to know how smart our young children are coming up. The questions that they had for second graders just blew me away. So that's a side note of the one fun thing that I got to do in the last couple of months. Recently, we've had several changes. So as of November 17th, our systems, File and Serve Express, which goes into Full Court, which Full Court is my record, changed and updated. We are fully aware that there are security gaps, basically, between what is viewed on the public access terminal versus what attorneys get versus what the court system holds closed and confidential. So part of the changeover that happened on the 17th, which was pretty big, was we now have an eligibility to build 7 different layers of confidential and what's viewable to people for the record, for the electronic record. That was a huge movement in the right direction based off of the fact that when I counted it last, I think there's 14 different levels of security that I need to meet, but our system capability is not necessarily meeting that. Along with the system change, there was an exposure of, just the differences across the counties. We know that we're county elected officials, that we do what we need to within our offices, but some of our practices have to change. So the Clerk of District Court Association is working towards making sure the expectation for attorneys is the same as the expectation within each office. We have a couple side projects going on about that to ensure that we can meet what an expectation would be for each person across the state, instead of saying, oh, Fremont County does it this way, Sublette County does it this way, so on and so forth. So that's been a major project that we put on. One of the things that has come to light is the way that the paper record was so much easier to hold paternities and those type of things confidential in the way that it was meant. But now with the system change, it's not quite the same across the board. Meaning that the idea of what's confidential, what's not, where the case opens, where the case ends is not there. So as an association, we're working on getting a conglomeration across the board of that security level and making sure that the appropriate information is still viewable to the public, while what needs to remain confidential is confidential. These small exposures just make us realize how big a small change in most people's eyes could be. Going to the electronic record was something big. As we all know, I'm still printing out the paper documents for backup because I am required to maintain permanently. And so I do still have that going. I've not yet sought out a solution on how I fix that. That was another question posed to a couple of the committees that I'm on, is that while we have the electronic record, the state provides that, how long is that backup basis going to be? And if it can't be permanently, do I need to then move forward with finding a way that I can maintain the electronic record permanently here? So that's a barrier that I've come up against. Part of that is we don't have a recycle bin, which means that when these documents are coming through, if it's deleted off of one of the programs, it just disappears forever. That to me is not respectable to the general public. This is their record. This is their information. So that is still why I'm in the conundrum of printing out the paper record at this point. We do have another small group working on that. I've heard from other clerks of district court that they back up locally. The problem with that is the way that it's backed up and how do I get it to archive. So I'm kind of diving into those type of things just to maintain. Some of the ambivalence that I've come across is some of my case records have been open for 50 years. I have one that I'm currently working in from 1917. And so if it all goes to an electronic record, how do I make that stay permanently? Without the fallible difficulty of, hey, sorry, I lost part of your record, didn't realize that this electronic system would not necessarily host it. So I thought I would update you on that. It may come to a point where I ask for help from my county to see how I can do this without wasting or disparaging the fact that I don't need to be using a lot of money, but clearly paper is held up for 100 and some odd years. At this point, it's more work on my staff, but that's my number one goal, is to maintain a permanent record and not to just say that, oh, I have this assurance that it will be there. There's a fear of the unknown that comes in with that. So that's definitely one thing that I'm working with other people to see how I can do this in a manageable process that I don't have necessarily closed cases. Something could be filed in. How do I archive that? How do I keep it? So it's kind of a big task. The other things that I've been doing is I've hosted a local CLE for attorneys and their legal staff, along with judges' chambers, for the updates that happened November 17th to
You'll
make
have to
sure.
explain what CLE.
It's a continuing learning education for attorneys that they have to have so many of those a year. We offered this knowing that there needs to be a little bit more training locally and with attorneys so that they know the changes that are happening in the system. So I partnered with the judicial branch as well as the judges' chambers to offer that happened last Friday to make sure they knew the rule changes, how that affects the system, what it looks like for me and what it looks like for them. With that, I had a really reasonable attendance. I had 12 people. I had 7 people in person. So that was big for the fact that we've offered this class, but just to make sure locally that I'm meeting the needs of my constituents and the people I work conglomerately with. I do feel as though this will be something that we move forward with more. I've already offered a CLE, I think, earlier last May, with the local bar just to update and make sure people know what's happening in the clerk's office and what affects them directly. The state has really shown interest that, you know, when we move forward with things, not everyone learns the same. And I could tell people to read and go to resources. But the reality is sometimes we need that human connection. So that's another thing that we'll be working towards once we have these updates, is to make sure that I'm reaching out appropriately, getting the information out, and then I'm offering something so that people can feel like they've been included in some of these changes. I think that's basically it at this point.
So the changes that you want to make in the confidentiality agreement or whatever you call it,
Mhm.
is that a legislative action or is that, or how do they come about?
So what's happened is it was really easy. Let's reel this back. For someone to come up to my counter and say, hey, I'd like to look at this file. It took a lot of courage. A lot of people don't like to be nosy with having to exert the effort to go to someone else and say, hey, can I see this? That was easy because I could pull out the confidential stuff. Here's the public record. There we go. What has come about with the changes in the system? So when we moved over to putting stuff in the electronic system, people still have paper files. Now that it's open and we have a public access terminal, which is electronic, so my system goes to a different system, which will allow the general public to see that are held in the public record. Well, some of those things are eligible to view, some of them are not, and it's making sure that I have the appropriate things marked not eligible to view to the public. It has identifiers in there. And as we all know, everyone's really pushing for everything to go to an open access at home someday. Wyoming's not here. It's still within our maintained control. You have to come into a courthouse to do it. But I foresee that won't be too long before someone can get a subscription or do something where they can look up what I have as an electronic record. So it's making sure I have locked down that's not viewable to other people. Well, there's another layer that some of my documents aren't even viewable to attorneys, but only viewable to court staff. So that's another layer. There's some documents that people in the general public who are not attorneys would still need to see without having a paper record, and I can't offer that. That's another reason why I have it. If it's their case file, they go to the public access terminal, but there's some confidential documents that they're privy to. So we're meeting this layer of how do we gainfully give what we need to a person who's a litigant, who's just at the general public, and to attorneys alike, and make sure that their needs are congruently met across the board. So that's some of the things that we're working with and dealing with. Because let's be honest, it's not my record. This is the people's record. So.
Yes, Amanda, are you getting adequate support from the state? I mean, it seems like this is a software issue as much as anything, setting up your securities and stuff, or so I just worried that you're getting enough support.
They're doing as much as possible. Some of these changes cost a lot of money. And that's kind of where we've been at. So heightened risk, and that was this big changeover. FSX changed so that attorneys, when they enter into a case, can see all confidential documents that were filed in prior to their entry of appearance. Up until November 17th, attorneys were not eligible to see anything that would have been confidential prior to. So that was the one big ask. We allotted that. We also notified, that, hey, some people in the electronic filing system were viewable who shouldn't have been viewable. That locked those down. It also allows for attorneys to enter their appearance in on confidential cases without calling me and emailing me a document. So, we're getting adequate support. Is it a long haul? Absolutely. Can we make these changes happen instantly? No. And so that is part of, I'm on a subject matter expert committee with the state, and that's where we bring these issues to and say, hey, we need help. Some of the issues, I foresee them saying, hey, I don't know how to help you. But that's part of why I chose to be in the association, work with our association, is to make sure that across the board we can meet our needs and that there's fair representation. So.
Mr. Chairman, we still have this. Could you briefly, we got this for signature. Can you just briefly describe that for us? Since you've already, do you need it?
This is fun. That is a child support contract. We go into those every 2 years. What has happened is we signed an agreement, and then there was a change with the IRS laws. And so what this contract is saying is the same as what was said before. Basically, I can't give out, I have another system. So in case you guys aren't aware, I work in 7 systems every day. This is a totally separate system, and it's known as Posse. So we enter in support orders and payments and those type of things for child support cases that aren't being worked through an agency a person hasn't applied for. Part of that is that we sign a contract saying, hey, I'm not going to give out tax information. I won't give out address information from this, that this system is held confidential by nature. And so they needed to make sure through the IRS that they were meeting the access points in which I enter the case system, in which my staff would be liable if something were exposed at an unreasonable rate. This is detailing that. There are 4 different screens within that system that are just truly confidential. So what the policy is within my office and has been is that unless you're a party to the case, you cannot get that information because it's only identifiable to the person who it attributes to. With that being said, it did add 7 extra pages. I was not thrilled about that. I kind of drug my feet because it is the middle of a contract year and it seems to put a lot of liability on my office. But at that same time, it's not a liability that was not there before. It's just detailing it out in explicit. You can't give out tax information. You can't give out IRS information that may have been received by the system. I did make the state provide me every screen in which my staff would be liable for. And that, with that being said, these are just kind of the consequences of interagencies and dealing with higher government.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve this cooperative agreement between Wyoming Department of Family Services Child Support Program and Fremont County Clerk of District Court.
Been moved and seconded to approve the contract as stated in the motion. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Right.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Got a question, Amanda. Amanda, I've been looking for some, knowledge and background on some cases that the Wyoming Supreme Court has ruled on.
Mhm.
Where can you find that information?
So there's 2 different spots. If it was a Wyoming Supreme Court case, they do have an electronic record that's available for opinions. if you believe that the opinion would, if you knew which court that it went through, so all appeals that go through me, I get an opinion back and I have to host that permanently. So even if you went, say you knew that an opinion was done in Lincoln County, you could go to that clerk of court if you had the case number, and they would have that opinion to offer to you as well. Those are all things. So when we send something up for appeal, they get my full case record. Once it's ruled upon, they send that back down to me and provide me with a memorandum as well as an opinion on that specific information. If the case was here, yes, you can.
Well, good, thank you, ma'am.
Anything further? Thank you for coming in on such short notice.
No, I appreciate it. I'm gonna go head off to another meeting. It should be a good time.
Oh, yeah,
Do you mind if I take that?
Yeah,
If you need
I
it?
do.
Okay.
I do mind.
You do mind?
No, we have
So I
to,
think we have to get a copy.
yeah, I probably have to.
Okay,
I appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you
you.
guys.
Merry
Have a
Christmas.
good day.
Thanks, man.
Tim,
Merry Christmas.
Tim. Or whoever.
Oh, sure.
You're taking Tim's spot.
Unless Tim jumps in.
Okay,
Good morning, Mr. Chairman,
good morning.
Commissioners. Thank you so much for entertaining our group from the Fremont County Association of Governments. My name is Mick Pryor. I'm the chairman of the Joint Committee on Funding Key Services. So as you are probably aware, back in September, the Fremont County Association of Governments by resolution created a committee to look at funding key services, namely ambulance, air service, and ground transportation, public ground transportation. So every week for from September through just before Thanksgiving, our group met and with a whole host of different folks from all over industry related primarily to ambulance, but also the other two, to discuss, understand, and ultimately compile a set of recommendations that we delivered to FCAG just before Thanksgiving. First and foremost, before we get any deeper into all of this, I want to thank members of the commission for participating and providing insight and information on all of the ins and outs with respect to ambulance. This is a very, very difficult problem to unwind and understand. In addition to input from you all, we also received input from Frontier Ambulance, from the state of Wyoming Department of Health, and from outside sources, including the Cody Regional Health Ambulance Director and his staff. In compiling all of this information, what we came to understand, ultimately, the simple operation of the ambulance service in its current configuration likely costs somewhere between $3.4 and $3.8 million outside of just as a straight up cost. As you kind of work your way through all of the issues related to that, and then lay it against funding resources available to the county and others, there are not a whole lot of options. So ultimately what our group decided and made recommendations to FCAG was to put it to the vote of an economic development tax specifically oriented towards ambulance, commercial air service, and ground public transportation. In a vote, a unanimous vote right before Thanksgiving, at last month's FCAG meeting, the FCAG group through resolution agreed that a 3/4 cent tax would be sufficient and should be considered. And that's ultimately where we sit at this point on all of this. And so part of the reason for being here is to open up discussion with the commission, but also kind of gain perspective on desire of your body, as ultimately any sales tax would need to come before this commission before it could be put to a vote. That's about where we're at.
So going through this document, one of the questions that I had was continuing with the contract, because in all reality, there won't, if this, and I hesitate to call it an economic development tax because that leaves a bad taste in people's mouth.
Fully agree. Unfortunately, state statute, that's the only mechanism available. So irrespective of the label, I think we can, but yeah, I totally understand.
So
Mr. Chairman.
with that being said, one of the suggestions was to continue with our current provider for another year, or which would be in reality probably closer to 2 years.
Hard to say, but at
Because
least
we
a year.
you won't realize any payment from the tax until April. Is that right, Jim?
Yes, if it was to go, well, let's see,
If
if it was to be on if it passed in August, it would start collection in January.
Right. And it takes Department of Revenue how long to get their act together and start distributing the funds?
So then, so collection would start in January, we would start seeing, the first distribution in March.
So.
So it is on the recommendation that it would go on the primary.
That would be the recommendation. Yes, sir.
So with that being said, is it still expected that the county continue paying this current subsidy until the time?
I think so, yes, sir. And the way I would probably do it if I were in your shoes is I would, depending on looking at kind of future actions and assuming that the public is, wants to go along with it. One way that I might recommend doing it is, utilizing some of your funds from the previous half-cent economic development tax to cover some of these costs, as I think the argument can be made that ambulance service is economic development because it is infrastructure related to healthcare, and healthcare is a core tenet of any economic system. But that's the hard part there is kind of juggling all of the other needs within the system. But yes, sir, I think there's a point in time where there's a kind of a gap between when funds start and when bills are needing to be paid. And that is a difficult budget question that I am not prepared to answer with any level of certainty. But I think there are probably mechanisms that we can employ to get there.
So one of the things that was highlighted, getting sustained services, Shoshone, Du Bois Pavilion, Wind River Reservation, Atlantic City, Jeffrey City, so on and so forth. We're limited now because the people that are current first responders can't transport, can't do anything. So their level of service would have to be increased.
Yes, sir.
And they would have to have ambulances. We're $300,000 for a new ambulance and 3 year, up to 3 years waiting for one. We did find a new ambulance maker, builder, if you will, that is quite a bit faster. And it seems like the crews are happy with them, but there again, if we include all those outlying areas, we're talking another couple $1 million just in ambulance, let alone the staff.
Yes, sir. Within that report, I don't think I can say with certainty, the intention was not to say we would staff crews in those geographic areas on a permanent basis, but basically provide enough coverage such that you could flex your system out to those areas without necessarily putting drains or strains on the other parts of your system. As you look at kind of the juggling that Frontier currently does with 3 ambulances in Riverton, 2 ambulances in Lander, and 1 in DuBois, there's a lot of shifting that goes on, particularly with the DuBois ambulance sometimes coming down to the Causeway, and then the Lander and Riverton systems moving back and forth to Hudson and other places. I think it's the system that we are operating in is a minimalist system, and it's not to say that we can't continue to operate it, but I would say that it is probably not the most. It is a cost-efficient system, but when you look at it from the perspective of healthcare, it might not be the most efficient from a healthcare delivery standpoint.
Well, it might be cost efficient for all the members of FCAG and all the communities and municipalities that they represent, but it's not economical for the county.
Most certainly.
And that's, I mean, suddenly FCAG wants to show an interest in all this and they're interested, which I'm glad for. But in the past, when we've come to the municipalities, they've literally run away from it and denied that there's any, that they don't have any funding for it.
I wish I could speak to
I know.
FCAG on that one.
I'm not killing the messenger. I believe.
No, I understand.
So in the plan where if we would continue our contract for a year, let's say a year and a half,
Mhm.
in that time, then we'll have to renegotiate the contract. But who provides the maintenance to the vehicles, to the fleet, to the buildings, the infrastructure that's already there?
That's a good question. And those are details that I think ultimately have to kind of be worked out between FCAG and the county ultimately. But I think there are resources available. I'm not going to necessarily commit Wind River Transit Authority to all of this type of thing, but there are some redundancies across the county that might be available to kind of help with some of those issues.
And then I'll quit hogging the floor here, but so right now, you know, one of the main issues is that they need new heart monitors. Well, that's $450,000 right off the top,
Yes, sir.
and we can't afford it. We can only afford the subsidy and barely squeak by with that. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions that I have, and I'm sure you do as well. And the last question I have is if this would take place, does the county get reimbursed for their current assets?
I don't know. I would assume there would be something, some arrangement that could be made to facilitate that transfer.
Right.
But that is, we're at the beginning of the pipeline, and that is not a detail we considered, but I think it is something that certainly needs to be discussed in any future MOU.
Sure.
Commissioner.
In my communications at FCAG, you know, in the movement to develop this group, it was to look at out of the box way of trying to look at funding for this particular issue we have. And then communicating to all of the governmental entities at FCAG, stating that, you know, if I was a taxpayer and you came to me and you said you want me to vote for taxation again, I would say, well, how come these particular municipalities can't come together and say, as a government, I will support my people and I will pay my portion to make ambulance happen. And I stated this in FCAG. I said, how come Riverton, Lander, all the other municipalities can't come together and say, we will put this portion in as the county, our county entity said, how come we can't just all come together and put a portion in and come up with a governmental sense rather than taxing our people and saying you need to be responsible for this, why can't we as a government say, we are responsible to take care of this? Because that's what I said in FCAG. Why can't those municipalities come together? And come together and put a portion of what, in a sense of, if we go to Frontier and say, who do you serve the most? And we know already it's Riverton. Riverton's right at the top of the list. We used to think it was the tribes, but it isn't. And even then, the tribes haven't even supported this or even come to the table for this. But yet they have to have a portion of this somehow. In that, I think every government, whether it be municipality, whether it be county, whether it be tribal, has to have some sort of committed government response in this and quit taxing the people and quit asking the people to do this. We as governments have to sit together and make sure that this happens. And rather than spending money on some crazy stuff which I see the municipalities do. They vote on stuff and they pay for stuff that I'm like, well, you could put money into the ambulance service rather than do that. You know, and all of a sudden we had an Indiana lander say, well, we don't care about ambulance service. We care about the airport. I've heard that from Lander government. And so they weren't all on board on this. So to me, my complaint is that in FCAG, I've made this clear that when we developed this separate entity, it was to come up with a unique way of thinking, not going and say, well, we want to just tax. I mean, we could have done that. You know, we could have just said, oh, let's just come up with a tax. I mean, to me, it's like all that time in thinking about what you're going to do, I would have came up with a response to say, maybe when the town authority can look at taking over, in a sense, collaborating with the ambulance service to provide this, and this, and then each government would put in money for this to happen. Something unique, rather than go and say taxation. Because I'm going to tell you, right off the bat, knowing my constituents, they're going to say, how come as a government you guys couldn't come together and get this done? That's why we vote for you. That's why we have you in there, is to come up with solutions rather than saying, well, we're going to tax you again, and we're going to tax you again, and it's your responsibility. And then as a municipality, you're spending all this money on goofy stuff when you could have just put a little more money together to get this moving. That's my problem with this. That's my issue with this, is that a solution should have came up that was unique, not just something that we would have thought of, not something we would have done.
Well, it appears like we're shooting the messenger, and I apologize for that. But I know you've spent a lot of time, a lot of work, and ambulance is only one part of it.
Yes, sir.
So, anybody else got questions, comments on the ambulance part? And I know there's a lot of things to work out. And, a lot of things we haven't thought of, or we've thought of, that it wasn't brought forward in the group. So, I think there's always room for discussion. So go ahead.
He's an easy target, so I'll take a shot at it. Nick, I got a situation, I got a problem with a little bit. When I get taxed, I'd like to know where that money's at, and I like it to be under somebody that had been elected.
Mhm.
That way, if I don't like the way somebody on this board votes, I have a vote. I can say, you're not gonna be there next year. Whether I'm here or not, that's the way I see it. When you get my tax dollars, I want this commission to be responsible. I don't vote for a lot of these other places, okay? But with that being said, I don't want my tax dollars going to another offline board. Okay, we've already seen 2 offline boards. I'm kind of tired of the offline board stuff. Okay, I want somebody to be responsible. That I can say, okay, I don't agree with the way you're doing it. Okay, and the way this structure's set up, we endorse it. Fremont County Association endorses it, but then we put 3 or 4 different stepping stones in there before you can ever get to where the money's at. Okay, that's one of my issues with it. So, in my opinion, if we could get the Fremont County Association of Governments together and form a district where we all have elected officials in the group, then I'm more for it than to have 4 or 5 steps before you get to where the money is being spent. Somebody else is making the decision, but we get the responsibility of making sure it gets paid. That's my issue.
Mr. Chairman, can I?
Sure.
So, I absolutely agree that the buck needs to, any allocation of public monies need to be administered by public officials who are elected by the public. It should not be it should not be the mandate of an unelected group to do those types of things. So there's a lot to unpack, Commissioner, on what you said, and I don't want to. So we considered you call it a separate joint powers board, but the hard part with respect to creating it as a separate district is the way Wyoming legislation is, or the Wyoming statutes are written. It's indicative that you need to probably have a property tax attached to it, which in the way that transportation districts are kind of taxed, it wouldn't actually provide enough to generate income for the operating of the ambulance service or any other type of service. Basically, a property tax is you're permitted to about I think it's half a mil. So you're looking at maybe $400,000 of available monies, which is not enough to operate an ambulance. So we looked at a couple of different structures, and ultimately we came back to the FCAG or some other type of joint powers board. And the main reason for that is if you look at how, and thank you to Jim Anderson on just kind of clarifying this, as you look at how sales tax monies are dispersed, not necessarily how they are collected, but how they are dispersed. They are collected or they are dispersed based on population center. And so realistically, the county gets about half. Riverton gets about 25%, and then the other cities and towns across Fremont County get a smaller and smaller part. And so the hard part here is you're juggling kind of a need with a whole bunch of folks who have responsibility over that money as a result of the disbursement of that sales tax. And so those groups kind of have to come together if we want to solve this problem. Unfortunately, just the way statute is set up here in Wyoming, or fortunately, I think quite frankly, fortunately, the cities as well as the county probably both need to be involved in this in order to ensure that enough money is combined together. Because you could theoretically run this tax and then basically say, Lander, figure it out, Riverton, figure it out, county, figure it out. But it's kind of one of those, you will have enough to kind of get started, but you won't have enough to necessarily maintain, if that kind of makes sense. So what I would tell you is I think it is still worthwhile to involve the cities and towns in the administration of an ambulance system, as opposed to just entirely putting it under a county type of purview. And the main argument for that is those cities are ultimately responsible for those monies as well. And if I were a mayor or a city councilman in a city or town, I would probably want, if I am responsible for those dollars, I want to also be able to say how those dollars are spent. And so I don't think I would want to necessarily just send a check to the commissioners and call it a day. And that's not to say that that couldn't happen, but if I were a steward of public monies, I'd probably want a little bit more say as well. And so it's kind of this is the hard part, is as we went through all of the possibilities and options and everything else, the funnel narrowed very quickly on what's available. And unfortunately the state, I think, is aware of this, but structurally hasn't made enough of a change to there's no easy off ramp on anything like this. And thinking about it from a budget standpoint, I know that the county budget is always fickle, with respect to valuations and ad valorem taxes, and now it's getting even tighter with respect to changes in legislation. And I suspect that I can't speak with authority, but I suspect the same thing is happening at our cities and towns as well. So the available resources to to do something like this are disappearing and shrinking all at the same time. It's a difficult question to answer. I mean, like we wrestled with a lot of it, and you know, the hard part is it will require a lot of consensus from government, both this body and as well as the other incorporated communities here in Fremont County to make this happen. I do not think that this is something that will be done as well if we all decide to go it alone.
Well, there's a lot of strands in it, make up the road. But
Most certainly.
strands are- And a lot to try to digest to begin with. I appreciate the work that you've done and try to get it going, because I do the same thing with the Fremont County Association of Governments when I was on there. And at that time, they didn't want to do anything. At that point, they said, well, you get the top money, so you do it. So that's the only answer I got. So to get to this point, you've done pretty well. But I think, you know, in essence, I like to see Fremont County Association maybe form a district with the county commissioners, and it comes under their jurisdiction rather than an offline board.
Fully agree. I sincerely think that this probably still needs to be under the purview of the FCAG and the commissioners. I do not think that you need, like trying to do something completely off in left field. It makes little sense, and you would almost have to start all over again from a consensus standpoint. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're on the same page.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mick, thanks for all your work, and the committee, thank you for all your work and discussion about this. I do like a few things. We've in reference to Commissioner Thomas, we have worked to try to engage the cities for some time, and I think this brings the conversation where everybody's at the table. I think that's been a desire of the municipalities for some time. It does do that. It may not be a perfect solution. I also like the fact that so our general fund is funded through property tax, sales tax, federal government subsidies, all that sort of thing. This entirely shifts it to sales tax. It puts these into a sales tax, removes that from our general fund. And so that's enticing to me. It's like, because I think sales tax is a little bit more equitable. Not in every case, depending on how much money you make and this and that, but it's certainly more equitable because it brings the tribes into the equation, which they've not been a part of through the property tax. I do have some, you know, and I get it, there's a zillion things that we need to work out. I do have some questions as to what the division would look like. So we did divide it in the initiative, the half cent for air service and that. And have you had any conversations about that division, or are you trying to leave that a little more murky?
Well, so there are a couple of variables that are really difficult to kind of nail down here. But I'll give you kind of the rough outline. So a 3/4 cent tax based on previous collections would generate about 6.5 $6.5 million in revenue based on the FY23 sales tax collection numbers. What we figure is that the ambulance service would need about 3.5 million of that 6.5 million. About 2 million is required for commercial air service, and about $1 million for the Wind River Transit Authority. And so that gets you into the ballpark there. The trick here is that doesn't leave you a whole lot of room, but one of the variables that we left off, because it's very difficult for us to, with authority and certainty, and so certainly don't want to put it into a report, is what excess revenue the ambulance collects. We know that it's not enough to actually run the service, but the hard part is trying to project what that number is. But what I would tell you is if we use that number as kind of the mechanism to maybe gradually expand ambulance, to slightly more vehicles than what we have currently and slightly more crews so that we can maybe conduct more inter-hospital transport and just provide more robust coverage across the county. I think and then in addition, this is the other part that was kind of difficult to get our arms around is, you all are paying about a little over 1.8 million for the current service contract, but there are costs that are not necessarily accounted for in that service contract that the county is bearing through the general fund or, kind of invisibly. And I think that if we add those things back in, we get much closer to the number as far as just, 1.8 is what the general fund is enduring on paper. But I think if we looked at all of the extraneous costs, it's probably much higher than that. Even just the discount that we provide the ambulance service on our dispatch system. And so it's just kind of the hard part there is nailing down the exact number. And so as we debated what is the right number, 3/4 cent was kind of the Goldilocks of, a half cent doesn't quite get you what you need just on ambulance alone, but 1% is too much. And so it's just kind of there's no perfect way to kind of project out those numbers, but I think having just a little bit excess to cover growing the service as opposed to contracting the service is in the best interest of the county and the people.
So, Mr. Chairman, the downside of a sales tax, it is not as stable. And so I think there has to be some thought, that in case of the fire, which of these three services doesn't get serviced? Which one in partially a sales tax question on this is, do you want these services? Because they're going to diminish over time if we continue to do it the way we're doing it. Just through the general fund, it's gonna diminish. Property taxes are not popular, and there are several new bills to get rid of those property taxes, which are not perfect at this point. I think it's a worthy question. I'm not sure. I agree with Commissioner Thomas. I'm not sure that the county will go for it. And if that's the case, then we come back to the same problem we have now is, how do we go from here? But I do appreciate the effort. And I think it's worth the question. Because at some point we are going to have to prioritize here at the county on which services we provide. Pure and simple. This has always been about that from a financial point of view, is which services can we afford? And I think if I'm reading this right, I'm thinking oh, I have one more question too, but it looks like this would be headed towards back to a government-run entity and not a contracted.
I think that's, yes, sir. There are about 3 different possibilities inside of that.
So, if this thing were to happen, why not just have FCAG manage it? Instead of setting up yet another committee? All of those are elected officials to Commissioner for purposes. And we have representation on it. Why set up yet another arm's length away and say this is all under FCAG at this point?
That's certainly an option.
Okay.
Ultimately, the intent of the report was to provide options to the body so that it wasn't this is the only thing you can do. Ultimately this requires consent of various governments. So it's not we wanted to make sure we had enough options available. So it wasn't this is what you guys should do.
Yeah, I can imagine a scenario where if we're a party to this and we're a part of that joint powers board, that potentially wouldn't have to transfer the assets. That they could sit still as our assets. We receive some of that.
Mm-hmm.
But they have to be some sort of funding to continue that going. I do like the amount that you talked about for WRTA because I've always thought WRTA, and not since Tim's been here, I think it's been a lot better, but traditionally they didn't really know what their true costs were in terms of capital improvements. and replacing vehicles and this and that. And I think you have to have a little bit of cushion there. And we've never had it, and it just makes no sense. But anyway, those are my thoughts. A lot to unpack, and like I said, I'm in favor of asking the question and working out the details. That's me.
So one question I have is the guarantee revenue for the air service? That's always negotiable and Casper lost carrier. I just wonder if the 3/4 cent is enough. If we would have to replace 2 ambulances, or if we have to put on an additional ambulance to cover the reservation and whatever, the outlying areas. We're looking at almost $1 million to staff it and equip it and to buy the ambulances. So that's additional $1 million. If WRTA has to do a bus replacement, God knows how much that is. And, if the guarantee revenue fund would increase with our current carrier at the air service, 3/4% would be as well. And I would hate to say, okay, we approved the 3/4 cent sales tax to go on the ballot. And then in a year and a half, FCAG comes to us and says, we need you to contribute another 250,000 because it's not enough to cover it. That's my concern. And I do know that with our talks with the tribes about them contributing to the ambulance fund, they are 100%. I mean, the Joint Tribal Council, they're in favor, I shouldn't say 100%, but they are in favor of a sales tax versus a regular, just them contributing a certain amount of money every day. And so,
I think the variable and it's really difficult to nail down,
right,
is ultimately the collections from insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, and private pay that will go into the ambulance service. The hard part there is it can change on a dime, but certainly we know that every other funding mechanism can change on a dime as well. But I would tell you that variable, if we use that as kind of I wouldn't say the contingency necessarily, but that opportunity to either expand service, purchase heart monitors, whatever equipment might be necessary to keep the system at as close to cutting edge as possible. I think 3/4 is enough, but that is the risk, but it's the hard part of government is asking for enough but not too much. And we debated that quite extensively, and ultimately 3/4 seemed to be the Goldilocks number.
Yeah.
I can't say in future years it'll be perfect, but I think at the moment.
I mean, when I budget stuff for home, something goes to hell in a handbasket and my budget's out the window and I've got to scramble to get the other money out, so.
There's one other component that I think is probably missing from the dynamic so if we think about it from a budget allocation standpoint, as budgets are developed in spring with an implementation July 1st, generally speaking, WRTA and air service are pretty well predictable. The ambulance service is the one that is relatively unpredictable. Well, let me categorize it this way. Air service is more or less predictable.
Since when? Sorry.
No, from the most that it will cost. Let me frame it down.
Challenge that just a hair.
No, you're right. The most that it will cost is very predictable on air service. WRTA is relatively predictable, barring some sort of accident or catastrophic failure of mechanical equipment. Ambulance is the one that is a complete basket case with any level of predictability, depending on 1,000 different variables, from the health of the underlying community that we're serving, the road conditions in any given year, what industries expand within our boundaries and what industrial activity we have. There are 1,000 different things that go into ambulance, but I think having those other two with relative predictability, I'm not going to say that any given budget year you won't blow the doors off it at certain points, but I think there is just enough surplus that we could probably, from a contingency standpoint, cover those year over year. And I think that's probably something that needs to be made clear to the public is we want to run these types of services at almost net zero, as in we collect and we spend and it's done. But I think creating a little bit of a reserve, a capital reserve, particularly for rolling stock and equipment, is probably something that needs to go into any MOU to ensure that the system can continue to function forward. And in particular, as things change with respect to, God forbid, if the state decides that property taxes are no longer a thing and they're going to go entirely to a sales tax or something else happens, it gives us a little bit of extra, pardon the pun, runway to figure out what we're doing next while the systems change under our feet.
Well, I know, I just spoke of it this morning that I saw that one of the bills introduced to the legislature would increase Medicare coverage
Mhm.
and it could pay up, they want to introduce it to where it would pay up to 100%. So that would change the demographics of our, right now, the payer mix is about 67% in Fremont County. So with Medicare coverage and IHS paying back our current provider what they owe them in the past, that's helping. Plus, with the Department of Health applying for the $50 billion grant from the Big Beautiful Bill, who knows what that'll be, but it looks to me like they're going, that one of the ideas is that they would give each county $1 million to help with the ambulance service. But that's still, depends on who you talk to. And the other part is that we'll give you $1 million, but that'll go to health coverage. So but there's a lot of things we can talk about, and I would welcome we continue the conversation. We'd have higher staff for collections, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of little stuff that we need to talk.
Yes, sir. We're at the beginning of the pipe.
Right, exactly.
There's all of these details need to ultimately be hashed out in some level of an MOU. So our committee, we are at the end of our mandate. On Thursday, we will return to FCAG and see if there is any desire from that body to have us continue working on this, or if they thank you, we'll take it from here, or whatever transpires from there. But and our mandate up until now is to at least provide some ideas and move forward. The hard part is doing it within a universe of constraints.
Right. I appreciate everyone on the committees.
Absolutely.
Is there anything you want to talk about quickly about the air service or WRTA, or do you want to come back and we'll continue this conversation?
I think it's worthwhile to continue the conversation. So the air service, I don't have a whole lot for you at this moment, and that's mainly as we enter a biennium year for the legislature. Air service is on YDOT's budget as the governor's #2 priority inside of YDOT. Interestingly, I believe most of the funds that he is requesting are coming from the lodging tax, which is nice to see. There are too many moving parts at the moment to say with certainty what is going to happen. But ultimately, if those funds are not renewed at the legislative level, the air service has even less opportunity to progress beyond that anyway. So I can't speak with certainty on that one at this point, but there will be more updates as time goes on.
Let's try to go for the middle of January.
I think we can do that. Yes, sir.
So it's kind of fresh in everyone's mind, and we can we'll have more information from Air Service from Kyle. The how stable that is and, you know, how steady you know, what it's been in the past, where it looks like it's gonna go from there. WRTA will have kind of an inventory on their buses, bus replacements and carrier service and so, but I think we need to continue on and we can make a few notes as far as put down as far as an MOU and go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to remind everybody here, we have 5 months.
Yeah.
If you want to do this, we have 5 months, right?
Mhm.
Now, are you shaking your head at me?
Yeah.
We have till May to get it on the ballot, right?
Mr. Chairman, at the end of April, yes, is when the last
Okay.
date to get it to us, but so think about it this way. It's the commission
4 months.
and 50% of the municipalities have to approve that. So
Yeah.
remember that,
Yeah.
that's, you know, that's a process. We did work, with Sarah yesterday on some ballot language. So we do have, that figured out. Also in my, research yesterday is the economic development does go by the 25% increments. And if you don't have enough, you can do a measure to the voters that says we'd like to go up to 1. And if it failed, it does not lose your
You know, the
capitals or
75.
the corpus there. So that
Yeah.
was an interesting one. And then
Yeah.
I just talked to Jim. You can do another sales tax, but you can't do it in the 25% increments. It has to be 1 or half, right?
Yeah, 0.5%.
Half or 1.
For general
Okay.
purpose tax.
And that our infrastructure tax will go up for renewal again this year or this next year. So just that information as well. So
Okay.
Thank you. I'm glad you all came in. I appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you, Mr.
Kyle,
Chairman.
can you give me a call? I got it. Oh, I just-
Thanks. Thank you, Mayor.
Let's,
Have a nice Christmas, everyone.
You
too.
Merry Christmas.
sorry for the tail chewing. Let's go with the public health nurse real quick and then we'll take a quick break before 10. Nicole, Kevin, thank you.
Welcome.
Why didn't you call me? I was looking for them guys.
Yeah.
There he is, that drop back. Morning. Morning. Where do you want to start?
All right.
Okay,
We're back to talk about the K9 project, using the opioid settlement funds. So they had came to you a couple weeks ago and talked about getting a K9 using the funding. And we just kind of have a better breakdown and reduction of cost for those. For that.
all right.
Right?
You want to go through it or?
All at one feet rise. You ready to do it?
I got you. Chairman Commission, I'll let Donna go down the break.
breakdown of everything. I do want to say that I spoke with the sheriff in reference to some things, to help offset some of the costs for the K9 being dual purpose and everything. At your guys' request, what we are willing to do, in Crook County, I believe it is, they fund 100% of the K9 to include handler, vehicle maintenance, all of that, with their funds for their K9. But the sheriff's office is gonna take care of the expenses of the handler, the vehicle maintenance, and the fuel, the cyber needs to help with the purpose of it being a real purpose. I can explain all of these breakdowns a little bit better.
Okay,
Almost the right numbers.
all right. So the sheriff's office will pay for the salaries for the deputies
For the deputies.
and the vehicle and the vehicle,
Well, the vehicle is gonna be paid for in the fund.
the cash
But
outlay.
the maintenance for the vehicle will cover the sheriff's office.
Is it before Donna takes over, with the vehicle, is that includes the retrofitting for the canine? Or is that extra?
No, that's all included. The expense for the vehicle is it to fit it for the K9 is all included.
Okay.
In the opioids. And I did speak with Jared. We got another quote as well through the current company that does our setup for the sheriff's office vehicles.
Mhm.
And then also, instead of using the other quotes, this includes a vehicle from Fremont Motors that's a year newer. Included in it, so.
Is it in the same parameters as cost?
It's gonna be, I believe, a little bit more expensive, talking to Jared. It's gonna be less than $1,000 more in the cost for the vehicle.
So the 89.
In
Correct.
the 89, yes, in that ballpark, versus the quote that we had from the other one, with the, I believe it was a 2024, 2025. Truck, this new one will be a 2026 with the quote that Jared.
Okay. Okay. All right, Donna, sorry.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we prepared this for you in response to the questions that you asked of us last time we were here. So if you'll notice, K9-1 and K9-2, the OSF means opioid settlement funds, of course. So the first K9 we have, the K9 training, the training of the handler is included. Training travel expenses includes mileage, room and board per diem, 3 weeks for training for the handler. Then the service dog kit is all that's required in order to keep the dog trained and well within the parameters of being in the vehicle, etc. The vehicle was 79 $540, but then add another $10,000 with a newer vehicle. Ultimately for K9-1, so it would be $114,125. For K9-2, the cost would be, of course, the fee for training of the dog and the handler, the training travel expenses, the service dog kit is a little bit less because we do in fact have some equipment and stuff that we had for Ricky, the previous dog. At $23,395. So initial expenses for the 2 canines plus the handlers out of the opioid settlement funds would be $137,520. So the yearly expense for K9-1 and K9-2, you'll notice they're a little bit different because we have the reporting system for the K9, which is $140 a year. So I put that in K9-1. So the yearly expense after the initial from the opioid settlement funds would be $5,426 for K9-1. And then for K9-2, $5,286, $140 less because we only have the $140 charge for the reporting. So out of the opioid settlement funds, yearly would be $10,712. Now, when we were here last time, you asked about what the sheriff's office expenses would be for the canine. So we have in the next column for handler one, we have the salary. And then, of course, we have vehicle maintenance at $2,700 and fuel, $3,375. For a total of $97,293 is what the sheriff's office would be paying for canine one and well, for handler one. And then the same for handler two, so the sheriff's office would be paying yearly $194,586. So I've projected over 5 years because we talked about the life of a dog, right? Okay, so over 5 year period, we're talking about opioid settlement funds, $53,560. And for Fremont County Sheriff's Office, $959,430. Was that helpful
Yeah, it was.
for you?
Yeah,
Okay,
so if I get it correctly, your ask for the opioid settlement funds would be 100, let's call it 150,000.
oh, thank you.
Well, I mean.
Yeah, you're correct.
We're 147.
137, 520 initially,
Right,
and then on a yearly basis, 10,712.
correct, right. So combined, it would be 140. Well, 148, 40, 400 or 148, 500.
148, 232.
Correct.
So, I mean, round it up because we're gonna have some, by a leash here and there.
And Chairman, I added up the quote from Jared. The total for it is gonna be between the vehicle plus the setup, 89,966.25.
Okay.
Say that again.
Difference of 10,426.25.
Okay. What was that total, Kevin, sorry?
The total, 89,966.25.
90,000.
Yeah, 90,000.
Yeah, 90,000. And, you see on here 2 K9s. We also took into consideration your guys' concerns about only having one initially and call out, and everything. And that way we would be able to have, we decided to go for 2. That way we have both sides of the week covered, call outs, vacations, everything's covered. In that aspect as well, makes it easier, more fluid.
And then, sorry, to interrupt. And then you'll track the amount of time for opioid use
Yes,
and
other purposes.
yeah, other purposes, I'm
Sure,
sure.
it all be tracked, and that would be a requirement of each A9, what they're used for, and, when they get the floor, they have it, broke down. Probably quarterly, because our to be, give on a stats for prevention purposes quarterly, so we'll just continue with it quarterly. All right.
And Mr. Chair, that's what this $140 a year in the reporting
Okay.
system is for.
All right. And last week's request was 187?
But the Eagles Hope,
Yes.
or not Eagles Hope, excuse me,
VOA.
164. 164, I think is what I had,
157,
165 almost.
167,
160.
and some change.
So, Julie, did you say we have to do a budget hearing on this?
Yes, I have several things for them, so that's not full hearings, 164, 250. So I have that one ready to go, and then this one, and then I don't know if Nicole had a couple of questions on some program development and operating supplies too, when they get done with this.
Yeah, so we just had some questions as we were kind of working the budget, since we do have a large sum of money sitting there. We need to have some line items that we can work to utilize the funds instead of having to come and ask every time that we have someone bring an idea to the table and then have a budget meeting. We feel like a better use of our time would be to kind of set that up ahead of time. So what would your, or I guess maybe I should phrase it is, would you, as the commission, be okay if we had a line item such as program development to put money towards, and so that we don't have to create a new line item every time we have a new request?
I think Julie could probably answer that better, but I think with her being the budget officer and then, but I think like program development, give an idea of, say, I'm just random numbers, $10,000 for program development and travel expense for training, whatever your line items would be. I think we should have some kind of a definite point where we're, okay, you have this much money to spend. It's not just an open-ended book.
Right, yeah, and I do get that, but I am just trying to be forwardly thinking of saying, instead of having to come and have the discussion of what the monies would be used for, and then having to come back and add a line item, like specifically for the K9 project or specifically for the VOA, like how could we work together to make it more fluid so that we're not, I mean, it's not just.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
so what I recommended to Nicole is to kind of give you an idea of what kind of program development they might be working on right now, and just see if we could put, like, if you're okay with that, putting that money in. So here's the problem, is we didn't get all of this done in the budget
Right.
time when you get to ask all those questions. So I said, I don't know if you were willing to do that. It was up to you of how much money you would allow her to put in there without having to come back and know what they're doing. I mean, like with the budget hearing, you get to ask that question. Here, we don't get to, so I just had her give maybe some ideas of how much money they'd want to put in program development, just to kind of help them get through the next 6 months is what we're looking at for this budget, really.
What kind of number are you thinking?
Well,
I don't really have a number in mind.
so
per
Mr.
se.
Mr. Chair, I'm just thinking about how we work the community prevention grant. So we have a certain percentage of our budget is considered program development. And that might include like $3,000 or $1,500 for Project Venture is something that we would have to pay out. But we wouldn't want to have to be sure that we come to you to be sure that we can spend the $1,500 because the Project Venture program needs that money to do their camp for the summer. You see what I'm saying? So that's why it would be nice if we could have a certain amount of money or a percentage put into what we call program or project development. So if, say, White Buffalo Youth Prevention comes to us and says, we need help with our Project Venture program to camp, or this leadership forum that we're doing now, we don't want to have to come to you and ask if we can spend $1,500 when the leadership program is 2 weeks from now.
So are you thinking 5,000, 10,000 or more?
So I'm embarrassed to say, but I'm gonna say in the beginning, when we knew that we had, we were being allocated this money, I had built, a strategic plan and brought to you explaining what programs and projects we wanted to do and the dollar amounts. Well, then things kind of went away. And now everything's happening all at once, and I have not had a chance to to put that all together again for you because it's been 2 years. So I can't tell you exactly how much.
So how would this work? We have the budget hearing,
In January.
in January.
Mhm.
That'll give you time to look up what your line item budget request would be.
Yes, sir.
We can have that discussion then,
Yes,
and
sir.
then we'll have to have another budget hearing, correct?
Well, so Mr. Chairman, so they can get going on some of these other things, the dog thing and
Right.
you know, the Center of Hope. So if they wanted to give me an idea, so I wouldn't have to advertise, talk to Emma, but I want to make sure with the holidays and stuff, we could get it in before the January meeting. So I think we have like probably all this week and probably next week. I'd probably want to say, let's do our advertising next week, just to make sure we met the criteria. If they want to get that dollar amount to me with an explanation of what program development is or whatever they need for those line items, then we can get that out to you so you're aware. Then you can discuss it at the budget hearing, because we'll have advertised it too. And you get, yeah, you can discuss it there. And if for some reason you don't want to go that high, then we cut it down at that time. But that way we can make sure the Center of Hope is in there. We make sure the canine stuff is in there for sure. And then just whatever they get to me by next week, let's just say it that way, with some explanations of what
That
that
works-
means,
that
what it
works
might
for
be
me.
used for.
Commissioner,
And I can advertise it that way.
you agree?
We don't have the time and no, basically. I mean, I'm just struggling with certain aspects of this. You know, when this whole opioid thing, I mean, a crisis in America. And I guess in my mind, I always thought that this settlement would go more towards trying to get people away from the abuse of these opioids. And I struggle with the dog a little bit. It's like, well, we're gonna go sniff drugs, okay? And I just struggle with that a little bit. Again, we're not dealing with the root yet, and maybe that's in your budget. I still need to see that. So if you want to do that through a budget session, I guess I'm okay, but I'm struggling a little bit because I want to have a conversation about those and the use of these funds relative to what it's trying to do. And if your budget's got to do that, the dogs I'm struggling with a little bit. Maybe others aren't. I'm just one. So anyway, that's where I am. Sorry. Okay, sorry to divert us.
Are you in favor of moving ahead with the budget hearing as Julie described?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
And then we can have that
Okay.
discussion with,
Okay.
on the budget line
Yeah.
items
Right.
Okay.
at that time.
All right. I'm happy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So we'll get information to you at the last day that we need to get that information from you guys, Nicole and Tana, just so that we can advertise. And then if you'll do a kind of like a budget hearing, I mean, like a budget message about those line items and how you might use them, I think that would help Commissioner Jones so hear what he's saying. So
Mr. Chair, please just give me a deadline. I have a lot going on, so
when next week?
You tell us.
Well, it's still Tuesday. I guess we only have 2 days. So
And I'm not sure what.
let's say by Monday, just to be safe, just because of the holidays starting on a Wednesday.
Because Chairman,
Commissioner.
Yeah. I was letting them have that discussion with deadlines. Because she was like.
yeah,
And-
I'm facilitating trainings this week,
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Everything hits at once.
Yeah.
Murphy's Law.
yes, sir, ma'am.
So, when we come back to do that budget hearing stuff, that you had put together a really nice structured way and laid it all out. But I think we need to have things defined so we understand more about what you're looking at, like you did before. And then also, I do believe we don't need an open checkbook here. We do need some caps, okay?
Mhm.
Like, and to be approved through that gap. Why do you want that gap? Why, is that where you need to be type of thing? So I like to see that come about when we put that together, like you did before.
Mr. Thomas.
Chairman, we also have another ongoing funding, which is the gambling. That's another one that needs to be brought for the same process because we need that money to be spent. And that money's gonna be coming in all the time, in a sense, I mean, it's nonstop, I mean. They haven't, the state hasn't stopped saying they're not gonna do it, I mean, it's always gonna be coming, so we have to make sure that makes sense.
Mr. Chairman, I think you set that budget up pretty well,
Yeah.
Mr. Thomas, so I think that that's in better shape. This one was kind of like, we don't know what we're doing, here's an idea, and then that's just not enough for what they're, I mean, it's great that they're getting going on some stuff, but yeah, it kind of makes it hard when it's not during a budget session, so.
And I think all of us are in the same mind as Commissioner Jones, is that what are we gonna do for prevention? You know, instead of dealing with, you know, the problem that we currently have, what are we gonna do to do,
Thank you.
you know,
Thank you. Mhm.
do prevention instead of dealing with the issues that, as they come to us. So anyway, we can have that meeting in January or as soon as possible so we can carry on with that.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, Commissioner,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask a question. As far as tips training,
Yes, sir.
if you were an individual and you had a permit to serve alcohol for a day or two, and you did the tips training, but does that also, can you also be drinking as maybe a patron? Let's say you're the
The-
bartender type guy and
The server should not be drinking.
ever at all,
No, sir. Not during their,
not during the event,
exactly.
the whole event, they can't.
Well, if they're serving, no, they should
Serving,
not.
Working.
If, yeah, working. If they're not working, then
They
that's
can
their
serve on the
time.
side, right?
So if they're working as a tips trained person, as a, let's say, bartender, they should not be drinking.
Correct. While they're on the job, they should not. That is correct.
Okay, thank you, that's all I want.
all right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in and we'll see you at the budget hearing, probably.
Merry Christmas.
With that, we're
Merry
going
Christmas.
to adjourn for 10 minutes and we'll be back.
So, Ron, remember that,
I know.
when you're serving,
You.
Christmas.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I completely missed October's update and I apologize, but WRTA, so there's a lot of information, 4 pages worth, just to kind of get us caught up. But what's exciting, at least to somebody who nerds out over transit data, is we're starting to see a lot of movement in areas or pilot programs quickly. So I briefed the commission, I believe last time I was here, that we were involved in integration with Riverton Senior Center. That integration is continued. We are now operating the Riverton, what's the coin term of microtransit in Riverton, the system. And it's growing quickly. When we started out, we noticed some initial inefficiencies that we immediately corrected. We took a service that was being provided with 5 staff. All staff were retained by WRTA as phased operators, but the service only required 3 dedicated staff. So those other 2 staff were kind of put into the pool and we utilized throughout. So we saw an immediate efficiency gain there by reducing the amount of dedicated drivers per day for a daily ridership between 40 and 50. From my perspective, it was underperforming drastically to what it should, given some metrics in the area. And currently, so what we're October, November, and so 2 months and some change in, our current daily ridership fluctuates between 60 and 70. And so we're seeing a gain in ridership there, while the overall service is costing much less to the actual FTA grant. So in our goal is to increase that ridership to the point where we need to reintroduce five drivers, right? That's the goal, is that those needs in that area are provided on an on-demand basis and provided in a true microtransit model. But that's just exciting to me. Our Safe Ride program set another ridership record in November, 601. So I was just talking with Tana a moment ago, when this initial pilot program launched, it accounted for sub 3% of our monthly ridership. In the month of November, it did total 22.8% of, just under around 23% of our monthly ridership. So that's a considerable increase and fully has justified the cost of the program.
That's true.
Yeah.
So Tim, was that around Thanksgiving? No, was there a lot more influx? That's,
The Safe Ride?
yeah.
Oh, I didn't pull the data by weekend, but I can do that. That's a very interesting point.
Holiday.
The holiday influx of,
Well, like
yeah,
shopping or
yeah,
whatever,
right, yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
I-
yeah, I can look at that.
I would probably venture to guess. That was big. I could see why that would be. And then also, is there, are you tracking like, do you track like to the grocery stores or to elderly help or doctors and track that kind of stuff? So y'all.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, and that with our new transit, or with our new on a demand response software, it's really easy to pull those reports. We've been training our staff. The training is ongoing, I'll say, so we can continue to refine our data collection. But yeah, we can pull up whether it's medical related, veteran transportation, as we've outlined here, things like that. We've brought our partner Prairie Hills Transit out of South Dakota, who we are a recipient of a sub grant from them to provide VA transportation. So that's our trips to the Sheridan VA mostly, but other areas we provide that to veterans in Fremont County. we're actively trying to use those dollars also within the Fremont County area for medical transportation between, say, Riverton and Lander, for veterans as well, so that those costs are covered and it comes at no fare to the individual.
Okay.
So, one thing we did realize, and I should have probably prefaced, is that I'm fresh off of the plane from last week from attending the National RTAP conference, which is Rural Transportation Assistance Program. This is my first time attending the RTAP conference. I've typically attended the Community Transportation Association of America conference. Very drastically different content, but I absorbed as much as I could. We had continuous classes through individuals who had research projects funded by the FTA on transportation in rural areas, tribal transit programs as well. And the data that they collected was fascinating, information we were provided. One thing we did notice, and I had a pretty extensive educational session on binomial logic planning model for it is the FTA's metric and tool, and one that will deploy to predict the variance of utilization of a system between which is easiest, more or less. So when you have two services, it's being able to predict the likelihood of them taking their own vehicle versus, say, an alternative bus transportation. So very interesting model that we'll deploy. But what it did, some of the information I took back was that our fixed routes are underperforming by even the most rural standards. And we did discuss with some consultants there some potential solutions. But I did include a statistic here. Our overall passenger per mile on our fixed route currently is 0.0956. So that is underperforming by quite a bit. So what can we do? That's where all of those models become relevant, is trying to predict and what we can do. But instead of jumping right into it and just drawing something up on a board and saying this will work and rolling it out, we have engaged in a fixed route redesign plan. During that, we did look over the last 3 months of collected data, this is ongoing. We do have stakeholders from CWC, the City of Riverton engineer, or one of the City of Riverton engineers, Engineering and Associates also is consulting on it. And so we're kind of pulling together some bright minds to help us make sure we're making this decision with community-centered mindset. But yeah, all of that, I listed it out there. I'd hate to just say verbatim on the page. You can read through kind of our methodology going forward. But we will be engaging in the fixed route redesign in the very near future. Hopefully, within Q1 of 2026, we'll come to the county commission and kind of show you what we found, show you our plan moving forward. There are some small adjustments we can make also that just become a convenience factor. The key takeaway from one of the classes was travel time is key. So when you are traveling, and I'm sure some of you might know, when you're using public transportation, if the bus isn't there within a reasonable amount of time, you're going to find another way to get around. That's kind of where we need to focus at, is our transportation or the wait time. Currently our fixed route operates with about 3 and 4 hour headway. And so we need to kind of find a way. That is a commuter based line that goes all the way around the county. But there's some small adjustments that we can see considerable gain in efficiencies. For example, our Kinnear bus stop there has not picked up a single rider in the 2 years worth of data I've looked through. So rationally, that arm of transportation that takes us through Kinnear and down into Ephraim. If that were rerouted, say through Arapahoe, a more densely populated area is then also serviced, but it also reduces the overall route miles by about 10 miles, and that's done 7 times per day. So there's a efficiency gain of 70 miles per day. So there's some things we're also looking at in that way, and in a way that we're not permanently removing service, but we can maybe extend a more cost-effective model, perhaps demand response based to individuals in the Kinnear area. So,
Yeah, question.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I lost it for a second. So that is based on dry miles, dry roads.
that is true.
So in the winter time, we can expect,
Longer wait time,
yeah.
absolutely.
Or not completely.
Yes.
Um,
So there's a lot of factors that we took away from that. Our new operations manager also attended with me, and YDOT members of the YDOT team also attended, and then a colleague of mine from the Buffalo Senior Center also attended that RTAP conference. So we did a lot of dividing and conquering, drafted reports after each session, and kind of shared information amongst ourselves. It was very reassuring to see YDOT realization and educational momentum through the conference. So, yeah, we took away a lot from that. Yeah.
Information overlay.
Yes, very much so. Very much so.
Absolutely.
I did
Right.
enjoy that though. So I did want to brief the commission on that route redesign. Just know that that's coming, and that our on demand, especially in Riverton, and the Safe Ride, primarily in Riverton as well, is showing a lot of promise. Yeah. And so in the month of November, we transported just over 3,600 passengers. So I would love to entertain any questions that you might have. And
Questions, commissioners?
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think that at any time when people look at what you're doing and what it's costing, it's all taxpayer money.
Yep.
And is this efficient? Is this worth our time? And money. Because I try to tell people this is the 10th largest state. Keep reminding them. We've got people scattered, but is it our responsibility too to have to do all this stuff?
Right.
And where does their responsibility come in, given your location you chose to live in? So, I can see that rural can be really difficult and expensive because of the dirt we gotta cover. So, but municipalities, a lot of times you're elderly, you're veterans, and getting them to them locations, then transporting them sometimes is best, I realize that. And then sometimes you just gotta cover it completely. You've got no passengers. Really?
right.
Okay, well, we know where it's gotta go.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does the Head Start feed into paying for their service, or is it just completely on your?
Mr. Chairman, no, not, that is a service contract that we maintain.
How much of that, how much is their revenue
Uh,
compared to the rest of your revenue?
So it's mileage based. It's at $2.05 per mile.
Yeah, percentage wise of the whole,
But the whole budget
of the revenue, yeah.
of our whole revenue, I'd have to look to get an exact, but it would be somewhere in the 20% range.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Is Sheridan also a contract thing to transport the veterans? Is that also a contract thing to Sheridan? Take our veterans, do you contract with all these different entities?
Yes, well, it's not considered, it's not considered a service contract like Head Start is.
Okay.
There are very few allowable service contracts for public transit agencies to engage in. And that's, if anybody cares for some dry reading, 49 CFR Part 604 is the charter regulation. So any direct service provided is covered under that. And then there's an Appendix A, which was recently just revised into an online format. That appendix is our allowable service contract. So that covers Head Start and a few others that are also funded. We can provide those direct services. Our veteran transportation is just considered general public transportation. The fare associated with it is covered by that grant.
Okay.
Fare box revenue is handled very uniquely into what we would normally think of, in that it's not directly, or we cannot directly apply it to our required local match amount. What it does is it reduces the amount of reimbursable revenue in our operating budget. So it covers our operating costs and extends that operations grant a little bit further, if that makes sense. So it's kind of an interesting, thing to navigate, but we do cover a lot of those fare obligations through partnerships with, say, Prairie Hills Transit. There's a couple other providers in our area, Homestead Living, things like that, that cover the fare for certain individuals.
Any further questions?
Well, just get this off my mind, Tim, you've always done an excellent job with the transportation. I really appreciate it. And as director of the Fremont County Association of Governments, would you be able to if we put together a board or a district, would you be able to handle being the director of that also?
I would refrain from providing a direct answer to that, Commissioner, if you don't mind, because that would take a lot of consideration and planning, and I think those details would have to be worked out.
That's why I thought of you here.
I enjoy my work. I came home to Fremont County after spending a decade overseeing public transportation for the University of Wyoming. Public transportation is what I do. And I enjoy that work very much. So.
There's other opinions.
Sure.
You've done such a good job. That was on my mind.
Well, and we continue to improve, Commissioner. Every day, we're always trying to improve our service offerings. And I mean, it's not a secret. Mobility in Fremont County is difficult, especially for those without their own vehicle or those in being able to problem solve that with the resources we have is a challenge, is very much a challenge. And I will refer to what Commissioner Wilson had said before, in that we are you said 10th or 10th state. Yeah, I shared that statistic throughout that conference, that there's over 9,000 square miles in Fremont County, and that's on us to figure out how we provide service to those individuals that live in such a rural area. So it is a challenge, but yeah.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, I appreciate it.
That's on my mind.
And if I might, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to answer a question that I just remembered that you had. The cost of a bus could vary slightly depending on size, but you could probably responsibly plan for about $500,000 for bus. The benefit of that is that we have 5339 funds that cover 85%. So we have to come up with 15%. Just to match. Just the matching funds, which luckily, the SLIB board approved 2/3 of our request at this last meeting for local match for the procurement of 3 small buses. And so that lessened the amount of local match we have to come up with. They told me afterwards that if I had continued, they probably would have given me all 3, but they were very generous in what they did. And they actually criticized some of my colleagues as well because of the planning going into that. 8515 was much appreciated by the SLIB board, with their only request was 15%. So we had covered the majority of the cost of that procurement, but with federal funds.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Of course, thank you.
Appreciate it. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
With that, commissioners, we need to go into executive session.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded to go into executive session for personnel or potential litigation. All those in favor?
We'll be done after that.
Yep.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
everybody.
You too, now.
Yeah.
That's right.
Very safe.
Ron,
Don't count the wine.
right there, Ron. Chairman, I motion for approval for Sage Golf. What's their name, right? To be, appointed, or replaced in the position of, treatment court coordinator. Is that the, director? Director at the wage of $72,603.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Been moved and seconded to approve Sage Goff as the new treatment, the Director of Treatment Courts of Fremont County and Youth Services, a salary at $72,603. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we, engage Woodhouse, Roden, Ames, and Brennan for legal advice and potential action.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve Woodhouse, Roden, Ames, Brennan as legal advice and for potential litigation. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
What's on the other side of the edge?
No worries. Alright,
Recap.
we're gonna do this thing.
We'll go ahead and advertise a budget hearing for January sixth. And then
I just need to see.
I'll be in touch. If there's something specific, you want me to get in touch with for the air service discussion,
Kyle Dudson.
I'll get in touch with him to see if he is our board. And that's it.
That's correct. You got a cold?
I do. A little bit. Trying to keep my germs.
Commissioners,
Adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor?
Hi.
We are adjourned. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you all for the kind and generous consideration.
What's this one on?
This is like engaging.
Pretty those last year.
So,